Drew Timme might have been the best player in the NBA Summer League. What does it mean for his chances of sticking in the NBA next season?
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, folks? Welcome into the Locked On Zags podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host and longtime Gonzaga podcaster, Andy Patton, here to bring you news and updates on all things Zag athletics. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Well, joined today by the great Theo Lawson of the Spokesman Review, coming back from his 9-day trip, which is, as we talked about, way too long to spend in Las Vegas, talking about the NBA Summer League today. We're going to talk about Drew Timme's great performance with the Nets, what it means for him. We'll talk about Ryan Nembhard making good on that two-way contract already with Dallas with a strong performance with the Mavs. We'll also talk a little bit about Gonzaga's kind of summer plans with Tyon Grant-Foster's current situation with Mario Saint-Supery going to Spain, with Seal Venter still recovering from his injury. So we'll kind of talk about what this might mean for Gonzaga to close out the show. But Theo, I want to start by talking about the greatness that was Drew Timme over his 3 games in the NBA Summer League. We're recording this on Friday, July 18th. So I think we're pretty safe that Drew is done. He did not play in their most recent Summer League game, and I don't think there's any real compelling reason for him to play in the rest of Summer League, and averaged over 25 points, 8 boards, extremely efficient around the rim. And Theo, I kind of just want your impression of how Drew looked. He kind of said, oh, it was a reminder of college. It felt like being back at Gonzaga. And, you know, when crowds are chanting MVP and you're scoring 30 a night, I guess that is kind of like what being a 3-time All-American would feel like in college. What did you see from Drew in his 3 games over in Vegas?
Yeah, I think it was pretty interesting. I mean, Brooklyn was really focused on kind of their five draft picks. Mm-hmm. They had an absurd amount of draft picks and a lot of first round picks this year. So a lot of attention was kind of on those 5 guys. And here's Drew Timme, he was in his third stint at Summer League, played with the Bucks, played with the Kings last year, and it's now with the Nets. And basically said he's here to try to just cement himself. I mean, he had a great closing stretch to the season. I think played around 13 games for the Nets toward the end of the year. But obviously that there is a little bit of pressure now that the team is kind of focusing on this young core. So I think he really wanted to come out and make a statement. And I mean, obviously he was the best player on that team for his 3 games. And like you said, he didn't play yesterday, yesterday being Thursday. Mm-hmm. I wasn't quite sure if that was because he had played 31 minutes the day before and they just kind of wanted to rest him. But I do assume that they were shutting him down at that point. They had seen enough, and that's always a good sign. When you're not playing at Summer League, it probably means it's a good sign that you've done enough and you've kind of cemented yourself, solidified yourself with the team. He had a number of conversations with Jordy Fernandez before games. Jordy would come over and tell him to shoot 10 threes, and so they really want Drew to be aggressive. And Drew kind of joked about the threes. You know, in college, no one would have ever told me to shoot 10 threes a game. I don't think we saw Drew shoot more than 2 threes a game in college. So really has kind of taken on a new role for this Nets team. And he just kind of into it like, I don't feel like I have a spot locked down, even though I might have a spot locked down. I need to come out and prove myself and show why they can't cut me before the season.
It's funny. They used 5 first-round picks, Brooklyn, which is just unprecedented and a odd strategy, to say the least. I don't want to say a bad strategy until we see how it plays out. But very few of the players are really direct competitors with Drew, the most notable one, of course, being Danny Wolf from Michigan, who was previously at Yale. And Danny Wolf's an incredible player. They're not super similar as players. Danny's kind of more like a 7-foot wing almost, the way he handles the ball. He's a great passer. But both of them are big, 7-ish foot white guys who don't play very good defense. So there are some similarities as well. And, the games that Drew didn't play up to this point, at least, Danny looked really, really good. And so I know this was not Drew's intention, but it sort of worked in his favor that he had such a dominant role when he was on the floor that it kind of limited some of the guys he's competing with and their performance. Now, obviously, Brooklyn's not going to cut Danny Wolf to keep Drew Timme. They used a first-round pick on him. They're invested in him. But it certainly helped Drew not only to play, but to play well and play a role where he had the ball so often and was such a focal point. I mean, like I said, he compared it to being at Gonzaga, and that was to me, the biggest similarity. Yes, Drew's not getting the ball on the block as often. He's actually getting the ball farther away from the rim. He's making moves from the 3-point line. Those weren't really things he did as much at Gonzaga. He did a little bit his senior year, I think, because Gonzaga's guard play was just not very good. But it's interesting to see him be able to kind of take on such a focal point and really establish himself as a dominant figure. And then also, I mean, he's wearing goofy T-shirts in post-game, autograph signings. He's trying to avoid swearing in press conferences like he always struggles to do. It's just so fun to see him be that guy. And I have a hard time imagining him not sticking in the league, even if eventually Brooklyn decides, they want to invest in their younger players and maybe don't see Drew as a part of the future. He's done enough in my mind to be an NBA player next year, even with the limitations defensively and the fact that he only shot 21.5% from three, albeit in a very small sample size in Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, Drew hasn't changed in a lot of ways since college. I mean, he was doing a lot of the same stuff on the court, kind of the same guy off the court. I joked that he was wearing the same white Crocs that he got from a Julian Strother NIL deal his last year of college. And he just made the joke that I'm not buying new Crocs. I'm not spending money on new Crocs. And so now that he's making close to, I think, $2 million a year, he's still going to buy Crocs. And his dad joked that he finally did splurge on a new car. So he's driving a Mercedes now. So he's upgraded there. But as far as on the court, I just think he's in a spot where they can't really do anything as far as cutting him, trading him. I just think he's too valuable. If they really want to lean into that youth movement in Brooklyn, and just play all those young guys right away, then possibly they could find a trade partner. But again, I think like you said, after what he did this week, kind of showing he can shoot the three a little bit more, do a little bit more with the ball in his hands. He's leading their fast break, getting rebounds, taking down the floor, kind of a point forward in that sense. Still could definitely work on kind of some of the defensive stuff for sure. But that's not his MO. It never has been. But I definitely think there is a team in the NBA that needs a 6'10", 6'11" guy who can come off your bench and score 8 points right away and then kind of buoy you when the starters aren't playing. So I certainly think he'll be most likely with Brooklyn next year, and if not, then I'm sure he'll have a home in the NBA for at least another handful of years and continue to have chances to kind of prove why he's worthy of a 10-year NBA career maybe.
Well, you mentioned Drew maybe not being the most defensive-focused player, but the other two guys that I want to talk about here are more focused on the defensive end of the floor. Of course, one of them being Drew's very close friend, Anton Watson, who he got to compete against a couple of days ago. Anton Watson for the New York Knicks. And Anton, he didn't get a ton of run this year in Summer League. The last couple of games, he's played a little bit more for New York. And a guy who I haven't done the research on this, Theo, but I suspect that if you're a player who is on a two-way contract your first year and then gets removed from that two-way contract, it's pretty hard to get back onto one. Like, I think that there's so much churn every single year. Teams want to keep these spots open for new players, for rookies, for guys like Ryan Nembhard and Hunter Salas who signed two-way deals. So I feel for Anton because I think that's a tough spot to be. It's kind of tough to climb back into it. But when you throw down monster dunks on guys like Enrique Freeman, like he did on Thursday, that's certainly going to help a little bit. And that was a fun play to watch. And Anton's still a guy who has proven his ability defensively, has stepped out and improved his game offensively. We saw, similar to Drew, some glimpses of him in the NBA last year. Didn't have the same performance as Drew in Summer League, obviously, but do you think Anton did enough to keep himself kind of at least on the periphery of being an NBA player this upcoming season?
Yeah, I think possibly. Like you said, he's going to be one of the best defenders on the court. I think that other than the block, the thing that stood out to me against I'm blanking on the team that they played on Thursday, but he had 3 blocks in that game, and so he had 3 different guys tried to take him to the hoop, and then smaller guys, and then he swatted one off the glass and then blocked the other 2, and had the dunk. So he's still showing the ability to take athletic big guys off the dribble and get to the rim, and so he's kind of a mismatch nightmare, I think, in certain situations, and can still handle the ball. Again, kind of credit to both him and Drew for working on the 3-point shot, because they just didn't have a lot of freedom to do that at Gonzaga. That wasn't their role. They both really worked on that, getting that up into the mid 30s, and they're not going to shoot a lot, maybe, except for Drew in Summer League. But I think it's a necessary part of their game. And I think the one thing with Anton that will be kind of curious is obviously he was brought in under Tom Thibodeau and then had a few chances to play under that staff, and then they make the move to bring in Mike Brown. One connection to that staff though is Ricky Foy, who was at Gonzaga from 2014 to 2019. Didn't technically overlap with Gonzaga, but or with Anton at Gonzaga, but knows Anton pretty well. So having maybe one familiar face, one connection, one guy who can kind of speak up for him on that staff could help him as he kind of goes forward. But he's still trying to prove himself. Talked to him after that game Thursday, and it's been a whirlwind of a rookie season between being drafted and then being traded and then playing his old team in the playoffs. So he obviously didn't play in that series, and then finding out that your coach got fired. So he's still trying to make it, but I think if they want a versatile defender who can do a lot of things, I think they really like him. And during one of the games, Mikal Bridges was sitting on the baseline and really kind of vocally supportive of Anton in a way that he wasn't for other players on that summer league team. So clearly someone who's kind of built some chemistry with the Knicks roster and is maybe kind of a fan favorite among those guys. And that could be a big help for him going forward here.
Well, Theo, we had 4 Gonzaga players who are making their professional debuts coming off of being on Gonzaga's roster last year. The most notable, of course, being Ryan Nembhard, who looked exactly like Ryan Nembhard always looks in his performance with Dallas in the Summer League, and turned a lot of heads for people who maybe hadn't watched enough of him coming out of college. And we're going to talk about why he probably should have been drafted in the first place and what he did to cement his spot going forward. All that coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, summer sports are in full swing. And whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf out on the greens, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game just a little bit more exciting. You're already following the action, so why not make it more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game action while your friends are getting sunburned out at the beach. You can use FanDuel to track your favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether you're placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right out into the 9th inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you're part of the action. The Wooden Award odds are live now on FanDuel. Graham Ike, 14th on the list at plus 4,800. Tyon Grant-Foster also on the list at plus 12,000. Theo and I will talk about him a little later in the show. And folks, if you're new to FanDuel, you can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, folks, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast, still talking with Theo Lawson of the Spokesman Review, coming back from his trip to Las Vegas to watch some NBA Summer League action. We talked about the returners, mostly Drew Timme. Anton Watson didn't get a ton into Jeremy Jones. He had one pretty good game for Memphis, but probably going to be a G League guy going forward. But want to talk about the 4 guys who were on Gonzaga's roster last year, starting with Ryan Nembhard. Nembhard averaged 11.5 points, a little over, or about 7 assists per game. This is through his first 3 games. I'm assuming he is not going to play anymore either, again, as we record this on Friday. He was sitting on the bench next to Cooper Flagg, which was just a cool kind of reminder or moment of like, this is how much Dallas values Ryan already, to have him sitting out and saying, we've seen enough from you. You know, I think, as you said earlier, when you're getting benched in Summer League because when you're getting shut down in Summer League, it's a pretty good sign. And when you're getting shut down, even though you weren't drafted, that's probably an even better sign. So Nembhard, especially early in Summer League, Theo, he looked awesome, and he was hitting his outside shots, making great passes, doing what he did at Gonzaga. It feels like he was a guy that, honestly, I think a lot of people maybe just overthought. And he, you know, yeah, he's small. Yeah, he's not the same size as his brother, but gosh, he was a productive college player, and it's hard for me to not imagine he'll be a productive NBA player if given the minutes.
Yeah, I think if you didn't know any better, you would have assumed he was a draft pick in Las Vegas, because they kind of treated him like a second-round draft pick is treated, and kind of treated him in a lot of ways like Cooper Flagg was treated down there. As far as only playing him a couple games. He played one more game than Cooper Flagg did. Cooper only played 2. Ryan played 3 before he got shut down. But you know, as far as kind of giving him leadership responsibilities, right? Ryan was really good at kind of taking on kind of leadership roles in the huddle at practice, and really says a lot for someone who's been a NBA basketball player for all of 3-4 weeks to feel comfortable leading a group of older guys, and number 1 draft pick in Cooper Flagg, and it really kind of speaks to why they valued him as a potential second round pick. I mean, obviously Dallas didn't have a pick, but they just really made it seem like if they had a pick late in the second round, they would have gone with Nembhard, and Nembhard's family really wanted him to go to Dallas, and his agent really wanted him to go there. That was kind of the spot that they had locked in on. And if you really think about it, there's a lot of connections to Nembhard in Dallas, as far as him playing under Kevin Boyle at Montverde is that's the coach who also coached Cooper Flagg, coached Kyrie Irving back in high school, coached D'Angelo Russell at Montverde. So a lot of connections there. Jay Triano is one of the assistant coaches on Dallas' staff. He was the former head coach of the Canadian national team, so obviously is really close with the Nembhard family. And then GM Nico Harrison actually kind of got to know Andrew Nembhard on the Nike AAU circuit. So a lot of connections to Dallas. It just seemed like a natural landing spot with all those connections, and also with Dallas's backcourt situation with entering the season without Kyrie Irving. Obviously, they brought in D'Angelo Russell, so he's probably going to get a lot of those reps early on. But I really get the sense that he's going to get a real chance, especially early on, to kind of play in a few games and see what he can do there.
Yeah, I absolutely. I think the amount of connections there, that makes a ton of sense. And the second round is just at this point, so many players are kind of angling to try to get where they want to go, and I don't blame them. I would too. The difference between being picked 40th, 45th, and going undrafted at this point is kind of minimal, because most of the players picked after 40 are signing two-way deals. So if you are undrafted and you sign a two-way deal, it's really not all that different. So I don't blame players for trying to figure out how they can get to the best spot possible. And Nembhard, I don't know if he could have landed in a better spot than Dallas. So this is fantastic for him. I think for me, like the outside shooting is the big question mark for him. The defense is always going to be somewhat limited just because of his size, but he works hard defensively. I don't think he's going to be like consistently out of position or really scrambling. He's just going to get bullied a little bit. But if he's commanding the offense, if he's setting everything up, if he's hitting his outside shots, making reads, there's just no doubt in my mind that at worst he can be one of the best third point guards in all of the NBA, and at best he can be a quality number two. Like, he can be that guy. And I don't think the ceiling is Andrew, because Andrew's about 5 inches taller than him, and I think has got 5 inches of wingspan on him. But Ryan he's a better passer. I mean, he's one of the most gifted passers I've ever seen, and I think that he's somebody who can really benefit and learn from guys like Kyrie and D'Angelo, and to me, I see a player who's going to be in the NBA for a very long time. He may never be a consistent starter. He may never be an all-star, but to me, the floor here is probably a multiple year NBA guy, and to get that out of the draft is incredible for Dallas.
Yeah, and also what I thought was kind of interesting about Summer League is you kind of saw him in 3 different roles in each of their 3 games. I mean, the first game, Cooper Flagg is kind of their main ball handler when he's on the floor. So Ryan's kind of playing more off the ball, but Cooper Flagg kind of struggled from the field, didn't score a ton. Just couldn't make shots, and so Ryan Nembhard really was kind of tasked with scoring and scored 21 points. Hit the go-ahead 3-pointer with about a minute left in that game, and scored 21 points. Still had kind of his assist numbers. Game number 2, Cooper Flagg goes and scores 31 points, and so Ryan struggles offensively, kind of flip-flop in the first game, and so Ryan's dishing out 7-8 assists and kind of doing what we saw him do at Gonzaga most of the last 2 years. And then game 3, it's kind of a little bit of both, because Cooper Flagg's not playing, and they really wanted Ryan to be kind of the leader of that team. Take shots. I think he had 2 threes in the first 45 seconds of the game, so he's shooting it well there. They also kept praising his defense at Summer League. He's picking up 94 feet, a lot of possessions, just kind of being a pest defensively. Obviously, everyone and Ryan knows the size limitations, but he's going to work hard on that. And I think he knows that's where he needs to really thrive to play in the NBA. But if he can just kind of be a pest and bother opposing point guards, and then I think he has a real chance. And the 3-pointer looked good enough in Vegas to make me think that won't be too much of an issue once he gets a real shot here.
Speaking of 3-point shots, feels like that's the only path, if there is a path, for Ryan's teammate, not only at Gonzaga, but in Summer League with Dallas, Nolan Hickman. I think one of the biggest things with Nolan that I talked about a lot and that I think really hurt him, unfortunately, is just being an undersized guard who's not really a point guard. I mean, we've seen this with Rasir Bolton and Malachi Smith and many other guards who've come through Gonzaga who've been very productive. But if they're under 6'5" and you're not a true like pure facilitating point guard, it's really tough to make it. And Nolan got his chances to be a point guard at Gonzaga and unfortunately never really grabbed the reins and ended up adjusting quite seamlessly to an off-ball role. But you mentioned this in summer league. A lot of the time when he did play, which wasn't a ton, but when he did play, they had him running the point and kind of facilitating a little bit. And I'm sure for Dallas, it's like, hey, if you can be somebody who can play both guard positions, you're going to have a much better chance of making our roster or a roster. Whereas if you're limited to playing off the ball, I don't see much of a future there, at least not at the NBA level. What did you see from Nolan? I know he had got some fun opportunities to go up against his good friend Hunter Salas in that game against Philadelphia. But what did you see from Nolan? Did you think there was much there that could really help him, or was it kind of like he's a guy who's going to be a G leaguer or overseas, but probably going to have a hard time sticking in the league?
Yeah, to be honest, not enough of a sample size to really kind of know where he stands with Dallas. He told me. They say they signed him the same night that Ryan signed his 2A, and they called him right away and offered him the summer league invite. That's all it is for now. So he had a chance to play with the team in summer league, and as we speak, I think they still have at least one more game left. So with Ryan Nembhard being shut down, Cooper Flagg being shut down, I think there could be some more opportunities. The fourth and fifth games, sixth games maybe are kind of when some of these guys get more minutes. I'm not sure Nolan's going to be starting, but he did kind of struggle in his minutes playing on the ball. Was a little too turnover prone, I would say, and just didn't really have enough chances to kind of show off his shooting prowess. And I really think that's where he's going to probably thrive as a pro is just being kind of an off the ball catch and shoot player, and then trying to make 40 to 45% of his threes, kind of like he did at Gonzaga last year. So we've seen how effective he can be when he's making 4 or 5 threes in a game, and then it can really kind of change the game. But I think that's going to be kind of his path to the G League, to the NBA, possibly to playing in Europe. But as of right now, I would assume that his path right now is the G League, and unless something happens in kind of their last summer league game that convinces Dallas' staff otherwise. Still a neat opportunity to be able to play with Ryan Nembhard at summer league, play against Hunter Salas, and then just kind of get an opportunity to play in an NBA setting, and then I'll have a story about his kind of journey to summer league and with the Mavericks in a couple of weeks, but probably not a real chance to make the roster now.
Got Caleb Battle and Ben Gregg were the other two here. And obviously we kind of mentioned with Hickman, we think G League's probably the path there. With Battle, I'm thinking it's probably similar, but with Ben has actually already signed a contract in France overseas, where he's going to connect with a couple of former WCCers and Fousseyni Traore from BYU and Adama Alpha-Ball from Santa Clara. Ben signed that contract before starting with Summer League and then got very little run with Boston. I have to imagine those things are probably connected, where the Celtics were like, well, we'd rather, give some of these minutes to guys who, if they pop, maybe we sign. And I don't know if Greg has an out in his contract or anything like that, but I'm happy for Ben to be playing professionally overseas if that's the route that he ends up taking. That's a cool deal for him. Wish we'd gotten to see a little more of him in Summer League. Caleb started one game for Phoenix, had some decent performances, but I'll be honest, I was kind of thinking that if given the run, Caleb would be somebody who might really thrive in Summer League with the foul rules and with the ability to get downhill. We just didn't really see that from him. I mean, he played 14 minutes a night in the games that he played, but he only scored 4 points. I was a little disappointed we didn't get to see more from Caleb. I think that he would have had to really pop, like really, really shine in order to get a significant look just based on his age and everything. But we didn't really see that from him, which is, I think, unfortunate. At least in my opinion, don't see either of these guys having done enough to stick in training camp or anything like that. But was there anything else that kind of stood out to you about those two guys' performance in Vegas?
Yeah. I talked to Ben Gregg after their second or third game. I can't remember now. They all kind of blend together at this point. But he basically said he just kind of took this opportunity because it's a unique chance to play for the Boston Celtics. Even if it's Summer League, you're playing the NBA. His parents were there. They both bought Boston Celtics shirts, so they're all out in Celtics gear. But he's pretty committed to the European route and playing for Sig Strasbourg at this point. And I think he's planning to head over there in early August and then kind of begin training camp and settle in there. So I don't think he expected a whole lot out of this opportunity with Boston. Interestingly enough, I think the Blazers, the Portland Trail Blazers, were one of the teams that were pretty interested in signing him for Summer League and possibly offering him a chance to play in the G League. But that would have been really nice for his family, obviously, to be right there and commute to games. And it's going to be a little bit longer of a commute now that he's in France. So can't exactly drive 15 minutes to get there. But I think kind of what he told me is that basically the European game, the structure, kind of his game fits what they're going to be doing more in Strasbourg than the G League, where it is a lot of up and down, really athletic players, not a lot of structure, not a lot of flow, kind of similar to Summer League in that sense. But he seems to think that there's going to be a big role for him in Strasbourg. He's going to get a chance to really play and kind of make an impact. And I kind of see him as someone who can probably stick in Europe for 5 to 10 years if he wants to, and kind of bounce around and do what a lot of these other former Gonzaga players have done. And that's obviously not a bad career path, and just seemed more suited for his game than maybe the G League did. So, and then mentioning Caleb Battle, I did think that G League or Summer League would be a scenario where kind of his skill set could really flash itself. But I don't think he really had the opportunity to shoot a lot. I think he was trying to be a great teammate at Summer League, kind of make an impact that way. We know Caleb is someone who's going to be really aggressive, take a lot of shots, get to the rim. I think he was encouraged to try to, play good defense, share the ball, get other players involved. And I just don't know if that's really where Caleb Battle thrives. And so it's hard in Summer League when you're not one of the primary guys. They don't want you to take 15 shots a game if you're not, come on Molly Watch or Kobe Brea, one of those guys. So tough scenario for Caleb, but I still think he is someone that can thrive in the G League. His style, he's athletic, gets up and down the floor, attacks the rim well. So I kind of see him finding a spot in the G League hopefully next year.
Well, Theo and I are going to switch gears here with Mario Saint-Supery going to Spain for 6 weeks. Steel Venter's still recovering from his injury. Tyon Grant-Foster, as of now, still waiting on his eligibility. The Zags are going to have a lot of moving parts throughout this summer, and we're going to talk about what that might mean for this program coming up in just a second. All right, still here joined with the great Theo Lawson of the Spokesman Review. We're switching gears. Instead of talking about Summer League, we're going to wrap up here talking about Gonzaga's roster next year and kind of the uniqueness of this summer, as they've kind of had some guys in, some guys out, and just haven't really gotten to have everybody together at this point. And Theo, I know you had a chance while you were in Las Vegas to talk with Tyon Grant-Foster, who of course signed with Gonzaga or is planning to sign with Gonzaga a while ago out of the transfer portal, a phenomenal player from Grand Canyon, WAC Player of the Year 2 seasons ago, but he's currently waiting on a waiver, again, as we record this on Friday, July 18th. And in my mind, from the research that I've done, there's very little reason that he wouldn't get a waiver approved. He's only played 83 Division I games, 22 of them were during the COVID season. Yes, he's got junior college years, but to me, it seems like he should be granted an extra year. I'm hoping the NCAA will hear that and get that taken care of for him. But how much of an impact does it have for Gonzaga that a guy who could very potentially be their second or third leading scorer this year hasn't gotten a chance to work out with the team? I know he's been working out, and you wrote a great article about what he's been up to and kind of how he is mentally in this state, but it's got to be tough to not be around the team as the season gets closer and closer.
Yeah, I'm sure it is frustrating. He didn't really seem to indicate that it was, but he basically said I've been through much worse in my college basketball career. He said life-threatening accidents, so waiting on a waiver is nothing. But at the same time, you want to be in Spokane, settling in, building chemistry with your teammates on the court, off the court, kind of getting to know everyone. He's been talking with a few teammates, especially. It sounds like Graham Ike and Braden Huff really kind of have taken on leadership roles with this team, so they've been kind of the main guys that he's been in contact with, but certainly would rather be in Spokane practicing and kind of getting ready, and he kind of missed the first window last month to be with the team in Spokane. They're not doing a ton of on the court work together, but I think once or twice a week they're allowed to practice together. I can't remember what the rules exactly are on that front, but he kind of needs time to build chemistry, and so he's still waiting. Didn't really seem to know when the waiver would come through. Didn't really have any information on it. I also talked to Mark Few in Vegas about that too, and he basically just echoed what Tyon said and said, we're still waiting on the NCAA process. So who knows with the NCAA? It could be tomorrow. It could be in a month. But like you said, I mean, if you look at his bio and kind of how many games he's played for DePaul and Grand Canyon and also Kansas, it would seem to make sense that he would be approved. But when you also think about the fact that he'll be 26 years old by March Madness, maybe that's something that the NCAA is a little leery about. Do we really want a 25-year-old, 26-year-old playing college basketball and kind of setting that precedent? But I think it all adds up for him to be able to play. It's just a little strange that I imagine he applied for this waiver, before he entered the transfer portal and well before he committed to Gonzaga, and we're still here in mid-July, late July, kind of waiting on it, and no real clarity on when it's going to go through or not go through. So certainly Gonzaga would like the clarity, and Tyon, even though he's kept a level head, I'm sure he would like to know what's going to happen sooner than later.
I want to also talk about Mario Saint-Supery, of course, Gonzaga's newest player on the roster, who, we've been hearing rumblings, rumors about Saint-Supery pretty early in the offseason, didn't actually become final until late June when he was seen at Hoop Fest, and he got his aid agreement and everything signed right around then. But already coming over late, already not getting to Spokane until, kind of later in the offseason, and now gets this incredible opportunity to represent his country and play for the Spanish national team. But he's going to be out, as you reported, I think from about a week from now as we're recording this, until potentially mid-September, going to training camp and then participating in the event in multiple different countries. I think they're going to be in Finland and Latvia and other places. And again, one of the things that's so great about Saint-Supery, and that Mark Few specifically mentioned to you, was he has this experience playing against older players and competing against 25, 30-year-olds and getting better because of that. So this is more of that experience, but it also takes him away from valuable time that he could be spending in Spokane, learning the offense, learning the defense, learning about his teammates, learning about the college basketball culture, Gonzaga culture, all of that stuff. Mark Few and Gonzaga have brought in tons and tons of international players, and even the very best of them rarely are super impactful in year one because they're going through this kind of significant learning curve. And the ones that were impactful in year one are like Domantas Sabonis, who was born in Portland. So it's I think there's this idea that Saint-Supery is going to come in and be this hugely impactful player. And from a talent perspective, I get it. But from how much time is he actually going to have spent around his teammates before the season tips off, I'm a little weary of what that role looks like. How much do you think this specific news maybe alters what Coach Few told you about how much he's going to play in year one?
Yeah, I still think he's gonna definitely play a lot, just because I think there's a need for what he does on this roster. I think we all assume Braden Smith is going to be the starting point guard, but they really don't have a secondary ball handler after Braden. So I just think unless they add someone late in the process here who also won't have a chance to really be on campus much, I think Mario is kind of going to be that secondary ball handler. Mark said that he can play off the ball. He's got the build. He's about 6'4", 6'5". He has the frame to play the two, and I could see scenarios where him and Braden are playing together. But I really see him playing a lot of those backup point guard minutes when Braden's off the floor. So I still think he's going to play a lot. He's going to have to play a lot. I think it's more out of necessity than anything else. But certainly leaving campus for about 6 weeks and traveling internationally when everyone else is in Spokane. For the most part, the players will actually be out of Spokane for a period of this time too. So Mario, would have had a chance to leave anyway. But just kind of settling into a new place, especially when you're an international prospect. He just got here a month ago, so I'm sure he was just kind of getting used to everything, getting to know the teammates, the coaching staff, working out in the facility, getting to know the strength staff. So probably not the most ideal time. Obviously, any chance anytime you have a chance to play for the national team in Spain, that's a big opportunity, and it certainly will help him. I think, but I think ideally from Gonzaga's standpoint, it would be better from their perspective to have him on campus working with the team than playing in Spain, and again making kind of another trip over the pond. He just got here from Malaga, so it's a lot of travel for someone that young, beginning their college career, and he will have about a month, I think, once he gets back to kind of work with the team before craziness in the kennel and kind of before things ramp up. But we'll see if that's long enough to kind of really build the chemistry that's necessary to be able to play kind of major minutes off the bat.
Yeah, I think if you're Gonzaga, there's zero chance you could ever even consider denying this or anything like that. It would make you look bad. And as a program that recruits internationally, the idea of even waffling at all about letting a player go play for their national team is not good. So I'm sure Gonzaga was, full-heartedly like, yes, go do this. And again, the experience, I think, does add value for Saint-Supery. But the last time he was with the national team, he didn't play all that much. And I think it's pretty reasonable to expect he's not going to get a ton of minutes this time around too. So I would guess there's a little bit of frustration about the situation, but I would hope that frustration is not directed at Mario for making this decision. But yeah, it's just another kind of challenge that Gonzaga has to go through in an offseason where they're turning over their roster in a big way and replacing all their guards, and not having Tyon around, not having Mario around now, and not having Steele playing as many minutes or as playing as full as he would, if he was completely healthy. Obviously, Steele's been around for a couple of years now, so I don't think they're as concerned about that. But it's a unique situation. I think I bet Mark Few's real happy that he had both Braden Smith and Jalen Warley on this roster last year, just in terms of them having a bit more, readiness to play for this team starting next season. Theo, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show, coming off of a long trip back from Las Vegas very recently. So I appreciate your expertise and looking forward to another really fun season in Spokane.
Yep. Appreciate it. Thank you.